Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Thomas Tuchel gets linked as the replacement for Erik ten Hag. Would you go for that? Also, we're going to be talking about a very interesting development about why Ten Hag wasn't allowed Amrabat and why I think it's a major sign of why the new structure is working. I actually agree on Ashworth and Wilcox saying no to Ten Hag about Amrabat, and I don't think that means Ten Hag is wrong. I just think it's about the structure that we want. We'll talk about that. Also, Gary Neville, Roy Keane going head to head on how United are set up tactically. Roy Keane saying it's suicide with the way Ten Hag is throwing so many players forward when it falls apart. Remember against Liverpool, that first goal, Casemiro gives it away. It's 5 against 3. 5 Liverpool players against 3 Man United defenders. We'll talk about that. Also, Dan Ashworth has been talking about Bruno and how important he is. Even said he had an unbelievable season last year. I don't think he did have an unbelievable season, but I do think he's a massive part of success. And he described Bruno as the crucial transfer of the transfer window by getting him to sign that new contract. What are your thoughts on that? And also, an incredible take I heard today that I thought I've got to bring into the show tonight. Listening to somebody today, they actually said, Man United, it was a bad thing that they won the FA Cup. If they'd not won the FA Cup, Ten Hag would have been sacked. There'd be a new manager, a new rebuild, and United would be in a better situation. Is that a good take or is that a bad take? It would have been better for Manchester United not to win a trophy. I mean, it's not like we've got them coming out our arse, is it? You know, we'll talk about that as well. Lots to get into on the show. So many good topics and your questions as well. But before we get into all of that, we are sponsored by Boohooman on tonight's show. And we've got a fantastic little bit of an integration for you. A bit of trivia as well. But first of all, a giveaway. Boohooman is giving away £800 in vouchers to one lucky United Stand viewer. Only United Stand viewers can win this by scanning the QR code or going through the link in the description. To enter, simply scan that QR code or click the link in the description and enter the competition. And you could be spending £800 at boohooman.com and getting yourself stuff like this. I mean, the amount you'll be able to get with 800 quid is incredible. You could even get some stuff for somebody else. Use that code Goldbridge, links in the description. And as always, even with the code Goldbridge, you will get 10% off. Even if you don't win the prize, you can use the code Goldbridge and get an extra 10% off on top of anything that's discounted on the website delivered to your door. Thank you very much for that. Don't forget to enter the competition. There is the trivia. I was born on the 10th of February 1986. I was signed on a season-long loan to Manchester United in September 2014. After United, I joined Chelsea on loan, I know who it is, in an unsuccessful loan spell that saw me only play 10 games due to injury. My most successful part of my career was at Atletico Madrid, where I won the Europa League, UEFA Cup and Copa del Rey. I'm Colombia's all-time top scorer with 36 goals and over 100 caps. It's Radamel Falcao. You know, this takes me back to I love the United Stand and I love these 8 o'clock shows in the international break because they always end up being really good conversations, not based about transfers. But I remember the early days. You've got to be an absolute relic of a United Stand fan, of which I am, obviously. I mean, this is how old we are. We had a guy, Alex, who still is in our group, and he actually used to buy United shirts and put the name on the back. And for the 4 he did, every one of them bloody flopped. And I remember Falcao. He had a Falcao shirt and said he was going to be the best player since sliced bread. He flopped. I can't remember what 4 shirt. He had Memphis. He had Memphis definitely as well. There was 3 or 4 players. He put the name on the back of the shirt and absolutely, destroyed them. Alex didn't look like Cavani. He looked like Griezmann. I'll make you beg for Rabiot, says Carl Robinson. Right, let's get into the show. We've got so much to get into. Don't forget to enter the competition for Boohoo Man. I hope you've all had a good day. I've had a fantastic day today, actually. Some really exciting conversations that we've been so busy over the summer. So this international break, you have a few meetings and stuff, some really good stuff going on, and it'd be great to announce it with you over the next coming weeks and months. But we're here to talk about Manchester United. We're here to talk about some news, and we're here to talk about some incredible takes. I mean, I want to get into that. Would we have been better off not winning the FA Cup? I'm actually going to run that as a poll. Just stunning. But look, some people might agree it would have meant Look, I agree. If we'd not won the FA Cup, Ten Hag would have got the sack. And if so, would we have been better off not winning the FA Cup? Would we have been better not winning the FA Cup? Get into the poll on that one, or the comments if you're not watching live. Right, let's start off with a bit of news then. So the first story we're going to start off with is that Manchester United will replace Erik ten Hag with Thomas Tuchel if Erik ten Hag fails at Manchester United. This has been in the press today. Look, first of all, the story, whether you believe it or not, this probably has some legs to it. Thomas Tuchel was very close to being offered the job. Look, a part of me thinks that he was very close to getting the job and Ineos decided not to, or he decided not to. I don't know what happened there, but obviously he was interviewed. Obviously he wasn't given the job, and obviously he hasn't got a job at the moment. So if over the next few months they decided to sack Ten Hag, then I'm pretty sure that they would go back and speak to Tuchel as part of that process. Many people think it would be Ruud van Nistelrooy, and I'm sure it would be on an interim basis, but what you're forgetting is if Ten Hag was sacked before Christmas and then Ruud van Nistelrooy took the job and the results didn't improve, then they may well look at Thomas Tuchel because he is available. There is no doubt about that. Also, the story does say that this is not for a replacement tomorrow, so don't get excited. This is about if Ten Hag doesn't do well over the next coming weeks and games and months, then Thomas Tuchel would be considered the number one replacement by the Ineos hierarchy. Look, honestly, I'd be very interested to see what people think about this. You know, I don't really have a massive problem with it. I know for a fact that Brighton are a well-run football club and they have always got their next manager in mind because they never know whether their current manager is going to fail or going to be poached by somebody else. And that's the Brighton model. So I don't mind Manchester United having that model. You know, what if Ten Hag did really well and then went up yours, I'm going to go and manage Barcelona or Bayern Munich. So, look, you've always got to have a contingency. And at the moment, there are one or two managers that are available that Man United could move for. What I would say about Thomas Tuchel is that if you brought him into Manchester United, two of your summer signings straight away would be on very thin ice. Mazraoui was very rarely considered to be his number one choice at right back. In fact, he played him at left back and didn't pick him every single game. And we already know what he did with De Ligt. I mean, he didn't drop him every game for Eric Dyer. That's not the case. They played a lot together, but he was certainly a player that, you know, didn't play that much under Thomas Tuchel in his final season. So, yeah, I don't think Thomas Tuchel is the answer. Honestly, I'm grown up to have these conversations. I mean, we've had many an international break over the last. I mean, it feels a bit deja vu. I mean, I remember doing. I don't know whether it was Mourinho or Ollie in a September or an October international break before, and we actually had a video each day about 5 candidates. So look, we're not at that point yet. But if we had a really bad September, the next international break, I wouldn't be surprised if we were talking more about potential candidates because it can get to that stage very, very quickly. I don't want it to. Hopefully it won't do. But you can't watch a movie 3 times and then say you don't know the ending. And if we have more bad results, then we will be talking about potential candidates to take over him because at the moment there is a movement to get Ten Hag out and there is a movement to back Ten Hag in, which is bigger than the out movement. And if you are a Ten Hag outer, it must feel frustrating at times because you never seem to get the majority. But the more bad results that happen, the more that majority will go up. And when that majority goes up, then the closer you'll get to him being sacked. And then the more we'll be talking about who can replace him. And Thomas Tuchel will be a viable option for that. I just don't really mind that, but I just don't actually get excited about it. I mean, I really don't think that he is the type of player. I mean, Zidane's another option, of course, says Smitty. But I don't obviously want to change the manager. But even if we had to, it wouldn't excite me. I suppose that's the best way I would say it. Even if it was absolutely nailed on that Ten Hag needed to be sacked. Let's say he gets beat 6-0 by Southampton, 3-0 by Crystal Palace, 4-0 by Spurs at home, and then 2-0 by Aston Villa, and he loses the next 4 games and we don't score a goal, you'd have to sit there and say he's got to go. But the replacement wouldn't excite me. You know, when Van Gaal went and Mourinho came in, I was excited. And when Mourinho went and Ollie came in, I was excited. I was singing. But I wouldn't be excited about the change this time, because I just think if Ten Hag doesn't work, I don't think a coach with a better tactical plan is necessarily the answer. I still think the big answer for Manchester United is to go on a longer term project and remove the deadwood. I mean, we've seen the likes of Sancho go, Wan-Bissaka go, McTominay go. Deadwood's quite an offensive term for some of those, but they are players that need to go. But we've still got Christian Eriksen, Casemiro, Victor Lindelof, Harry Maguire, and some would say others that need to go. So I still think the new manager comes in, you've still got a massive amount of work that still needs to be done at Manchester United. So look, whether Ten Hag stays or not, whether Tuchel comes in, look, we're no further forward on that. That may be a consideration. I'm not surprised by it, but we're not at that point yet, in my opinion. Mark says, don't you think it's a bit odd with what's happened with Osimhen and the lack of interest from big clubs and being let go on loan to Galatasaray, says Mark. I don't know. I don't know enough about Victor Osimhen, and obviously it's not the place on the United stand. I don't know enough about him. I really like him as a striker, but is he Ivan Toney? You know, Ivan Toney had not enough interest in Ivan Toney as well, but I don't know. Rude would excite me, says Asif. We keep being positive, Mark. He will get the sack, says Gareth Southgate. Nick J says, this is exactly what we feared at the beginning of the window. Didn't get a key position, 2 or 3 games lost, the break, and now all the press in Ten Hag. You predicted this. I know, Nick, but also I've got to be very, very careful because, I don't need to be careful. I actually tweeted it earlier. They say they hate us, but they watch every minute we do content, and it gets taken out of context all the time. But you know, that sort of stuff never gets clipped up, Nick, and we have discussed that. Before the season started, we predicted that this could happen. A bad start to the season, the press and the negative outers jump on it. But what I don't understand is when we are sat there 3 weeks ago saying we haven't got a left back and we haven't got a holding midfielder and it could impact us, we've got a difficult start to the season. You then have a difficult start to the season and people are going, you were writing letters to keep this manager. And I feel like going, look, I don't know what letter you're talking about. I don't write letters. But more importantly, why aren't you clipping up this instead of the out of context stuff? Like, we literally said we haven't brought in the holding midfielder and we haven't got a left back and we might struggle at the start of the season. And then we struggle at the start of the season and then people are going, you asked for this manager. You asked for this. I also asked for a fucking left back and also said we needed a holding midfielder. So I think Nick's right. It's not a shock that we're in this position. It's a disappointment, but it's not a shock. And I think things will get better if we can get Agate integrated and also get a left back in and Rasmus back and hopefully Mason Mount back and also Yoro back. I know, just look topically, I've seen a few people today putting, this to me is just pure agenda, right? I saw some tweet go out today about how Man United's defensive line is really deep in the first 3 games. Statistically, our defensive line is really deep. And you get people going, Manchester United are never going to play a high line. It's a myth that Man United will play a high line under Ten Hag. He's never going to play a high line. Look, we've got one of the lowest lines in... And I'm like, hold on a minute. The sample size is ridiculous. We've played 3 games. 2 of them Harry Maguire started and 1 of them was Liverpool, where you are going to defend a lot. So I am not looking at our defensive line at the moment and taking that we'll never play a high line. The first 2 games Maguire played, and in the 3rd game where De Ligt started, we played Liverpool. So I think we need to look at that in a few more games' time. I know as fans are impatient, says NR13. Criticism is rightly justified, but the media are a disgrace, almost like a Tuchel article was pre-planned. Yeah, mate, I don't care about the Tuchel article. I mean, I'm not bloody crying about it. I mean, these things happen. It's absolutely fine. I don't open the discussion. You know, people can talk about Zidane. They can talk about what they like. I'm absolutely confident that that we will not see that happen anytime soon. And I don't think we should see it happen anytime soon. But the conversation will rage on. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And I'm comfortable with it. It's absolutely fine. That's what conversation is all about, isn't it? And look, scrutiny is very important. Criticism is very important, and accountability is very, very important. And I can't, and you can't deal with little clips that people take. I mean, what people do with this channel and with other channels is that they will watch something that they don't like, and then they will see something they think they can clip, and then they'll watch it again and again, and then they'll get it down to there because that gives context, and then they'll pull this back because that gives context, and they'll throw a minute video out, and they'll go, he's the biggest problem in this fan base. And let's say, for example, my player rating for Marcus Rashford after the Liverpool game. That will get clipped up as just Rashford. There'll be no context of what I gave anybody else, and there'll be no context of what anyone goes, this is what the biggest problem is about Rashford. He actually played really well. It's just a Goldbridge agenda, and every United fan follows it. And I'm like, hold on a minute. I gave Marcus Rashford the same score as Garnacho, and I gave Bruno and Casemiro a lower score. Where's the context there then? And this is what I mean. Like, you know, it's very difficult to have an open conversation, which is why I like doing the 8 o'clock show, because we talk about things on a much bigger level. And I'm not stressed about Thomas Tuchel being linked to a Man United job. He might get it at some point, but he won't get it at the moment. I think everybody knows that. And I don't think Marcus Rashford is Manchester United's biggest problem. I think, have we been clipped up as a community for what we said last night and what we all agreed on? No hate, no agenda, no toxicity. I think with Marcus Rashford, this comes from the very top of the club. It was certainly part of Ten Hag's interview that, you know, getting the best out of Marcus Rashford was a big reason why he got the job. And I think within the club, they absolutely adore Marcus Rashford. They're obsessed with getting him playing well. And it's a key performance indicator, like it is for, you know, increasing sales by 10%. I think when you understand that, you become calmer about it. There is this obsession, maybe from the Glazers, maybe from Sir Jim, that Marcus Rashford has to be playing well. And I think that is what they're going to continue to do. And when you start to realise that, when you understand something better, you probably get a bit calmer about it. And look, hopefully that will change. But look, shifting it on, Amrabat, this to me is another positive. So again, we've had a bit more clarity on this. Apparently, Erik Ten Hag wanted Amrabat at the end of the window. So in addition to Ugarte, with McTominay going, he wanted Amrabat to come in, and he tried to persuade the board to bring Amrabat in as well. And apparently Dan Ashworth and Jason Wilcox said no. I think that I completely understand, and I don't know what you think, whether Amrabat should have been brought back. I completely understand why Ten Hag wants Amrabat back. He played very well in the FA Cup final. He's arguably better than Casemiro, as was proved in the FA Cup final. And if you've got Ugarte, Amrabat, Casemiro, Collier, Mainu, Bruno, Mount, Eriksen, you've got 8, which is a reason not to bring him in, but you've got a lot of options in the midfield area, which is a big problem for United at the moment. But so I've got no criticism of Ten Hag wanting Amrabat, but this is the sort of genius that we wanted at Manchester United. This is the sort of structure that we wanted. Not everything's easy. Should we buy Sander Berge? Absolutely not. The vast majority didn't want it to happen, and it didn't happen. Should we bring Amrabat back? You're going to get a 50-50 split here, because actually, I wouldn't mind him back, and I understand why Ten Hag wants him back. But you know what? Can I just shock you? I applaud why Ashworth said no. And this is exactly what we want. I understand why Erik Ten Hag wanted Onana. He wants to play out from the back. He wants a goalkeeper that he knows. But we should have had Dan Ashworth saying, no, we're keeping De Gea. Doesn't make Ten Hag wrong. Doesn't make Dan Ashworth right. But we shouldn't have brought Amrabat back. I absolutely agree with why Dan Ashworth and Jason Wilcox have said no, even though I would have liked Amrabat back, and I bloody would have liked him against Liverpool. But how can Dan Ashworth legitimately bring Amrabat back when financially it makes no sense? Financially, where does that money come from, Eric? And also, Christian Eriksen is still here and Casemiro is still here. So I'm sorry, Eric. I understand why you want Amrabat. We're not falling out about this, but financially we can't afford it. And we've already got Eriksen and Casemiro that haven't gone. So these decisions actually do need to be made. And I understand why it's not been made. I understand why Amrabat's not been brought back. And you can agree with that or you can disagree with it. But this is the sort of decision making we need. Difficult decisions have got to be made, and not everything can be solved in one summer. We can't just overload our midfield because I think we do need another midfielder. I wouldn't be surprised if Ederson from Atalanta ends up at Manchester United in the next 12 months. I really wouldn't. But for that to happen, Casemiro and Eriksen have got to go. And I think United under Ineos have set that stall out. We want to be successful, but we have to be sustainably successful, and we didn't create the mess. So we're not going to chuck Amrabat in and have 8 midfielders. We got to get rid of Eriksen and Casemiro before that midfielder comes in, Eric. And actually, if we give you Amrabat now, and then Christian Eriksen and Casemiro go over the next 12 months, we can't get Ederson. So sometimes you just got to be a little bit more realistic. And I do agree with that. I'm Mr. Toxic because I call out Rashford, says Sean Little. You're not toxic, mate. You've just got an opinion, and don't ever let anybody police your opinion. I mean, if you're abusive, then I think you know that's a bit too far. And you know, I've said that before. Sometimes I say things in a match that I wish I hadn't said. But in general, criticism is absolutely part of football. And you know what makes me laugh is you will get somebody on X who is an obsessive lunatic. I mean, they literally would be locked up for stalking if they weren't doing it on Twitter. It's obsessive. I've got a couple on Twitter who are just, they need to go out for a drink together. And yeah, it's basically stalker behavior. They wouldn't get away with it, trust me. But they will go in on you because you go in on Rashford. You criticise Rashford, but then you'll go on their timeline and you'll see what they've said about Anthony or what they've said about Bruno. It's incredible. So don't, you know, football opinion is fine. And criticism of players is absolutely fine. Genuine question. Can we sign a midfielder on a free at this stage and register them, says Nick? But we're not going to do it, Nick. That's my whole point. We're not going to, you know, this whole Rabiot thing, I understand it, but we're not bringing another midfielder in. We have Casemiro, we have Ugarte, we have Mainu, we have Eriksen, we have Collier, we have Mount, we have Bruno. We have 7 midfielders. That is enough. It might not be quality enough, but that is enough. We've got 7 midfielders. We can't bring 8 in. And I agree with Barada and Ashworth on that. We can't bring Rabiot in on 200 grand a week and have 8 midfielders just because we're not sure about Eriksen and Casemiro. You've just got to swallow it and get on with it. Newcastle are doing the same. Newcastle haven't got the squad that they want, but they've got to get on with it. And like Christopher says, what about Kone? Maybe he comes through. You know, same up front. So look, we've just got to go with what we've got. I'm never going to complain about that. I will complain about Ugarte coming in late. I will complain about us not getting a left back, but we have got to get rid of some players before we bring other players in. Did you notice Liverpool and United played the same 4-2-4, says Akil? No, I didn't notice that they played the same 4-2-4 because they didn't play the same 4-2-4. It was night and day. Gifted Ray, you are a legend of this chat anyway. Ray Carl Brown Amore has just gifted 10 memberships. What a legend he is. And Nick J has just gifted 10 memberships. I tell you what, Tuesday night, 8 o'clock in the international break. This is where the hardcore resides. This is where the best conversations always happen. It's always in the international break. And you've tuned in and you've got memberships as well. Legends, Nick and Ray. I think we do well to finish top 4. Our best 11 is the 4th best in the league. Also, Spurs, Villa and Chelsea aren't that far behind us as EPL roundup. I'd flip that the other way. We do well to finish in the top 4. Our best 11 is not the best for, you know. We finished 8th last year, mate. Villa and Spurs and Chelsea are already ahead of us. We've got to close that gap on them. They're not closing the gap on us. We haven't leapfrogged them because we bought players. We are playing catch up. You know, enough people want to tell us that we finished 8th last year, but apparently finishing 5th is regression. It's funny, isn't it? We should all think this. We're all entitled. The biggest critic is the person who supports the team. And they've got, you know, the only people who really have the right to criticise Man United are the people who support us because we understand and are passionate and it's our club. But what I always find funny is they can't stop telling us how shit we are for finishing 8th. But this season, it'll be an absolute outrage if we don't finish 4th. Oh my God, if United finish 5th, it's the end of the world. So we finished 8th, but you've put us back in the top 4 again, and now we're underachieving. Like, we finished 8th in the league. It wasn't acceptable. It was shit, but we finished 8th. We've got to move back from that position. You see, Mark, United fans are still avoiding the long-term project. Agents will want their fix with the manager bounce. Then when it is time to grow up, it is back to moaning again for us, says Ray. Erik Ten Hag should change his tactics. Players look lost on the pitch. Midfield open. Opponents roam freely, says Desiree. And Aniso says, I'm Ten Hag in till the end of the season, but what are your thoughts on Ruben Amorim? Very young manager and his tactics are very interesting. I think he's very expensive to get out of Sporting, because the fact that he's still at Sporting was quite surprising to me this summer. And I think Liverpool did look at him as well, but apparently he's got a big release clause. Would you take Ancelotti, says David? I'd always take Ancelotti. I think he's a brilliant coach. Ray says, bollocks to Tuchel. Can't even get close to the title with Bayern last year in a league that's not competitive. And Sheriff says, I'd rather take a coach from a club rather than a free agent, and enough with Chelsea rejects. I would take Cole Palmer, though. Tuchel is a logical choice. He's simple and boring, says Kyle. Thank you very much for that. This just leads lovely into something else I wanted to talk about tonight. And we've got quite a few good topics, and do get your questions in as well. But what do you think about this? We've set a poll for this. I found this incredible today. But then I thought, you know what? In light of the show last night, where it did get quite, split on the whole Ten Hag in-out debate. If Man United hadn't won the FA Cup, then Ten Hag would have been sacked. Even as a staunch Ten Hag inner, I think we would all agree as well that if he'd not won the FA Cup, he would have got the sack. I can't see a scenario. Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe I'd have been shocked and surprised. But I think we all know literally the night before the brief was that he was getting the sack. Let's not forget. Let's take a little trip down memory lane. It was a brief to very good journalists that Ten Hag was getting sacked the night before the final even took place. So if he'd have lost that final, I think he would have got the sack. He won it, and he kept his job. As I said today, I heard somebody say on the mainstream, if Man United, it would have been better for Man United not to win the FA Cup, because then Ten Hag would have been sacked, a new manager would have come in, and they would have spent the money on a new project instead of flogging a dead horse with Ten Hag, who will ultimately fail. Some of you surely agree with that. If you're a Ten Hag outer, surely you agree that we would have been better off not winning the FA Cup. Or do you even do you agree that that's ridiculous? I think it's ridiculous. But am I being a bit biased because I didn't want Ten Hag to get sacked anyway? But I find it incredible. I think there is a logic to it. I do think there's a logic to it, which is why I brought it into the show. I do think you can sit here and go, well, I think it's so important that we get rid of Ten Hag that I wish we hadn't won the FA Cup, because he would have been sacked and I would have got what I wanted. And we know that there are some people out there that are very much, I would say, a minority. Remember what I said yesterday, the stereotypical Ten Hag outer, loves Sancho, hates Garnacho. Can I just repeat that, by the way? The stereotypical Ten Hag outer. You might not understand what stereotypical means. I think, judging by some of the stuff on Twitter, stereotypical whooshes over people's heads. Do you know what stereotypical means? It basically is an unfair assessment on a certain set of people that isn't based on the truth. So when I say a stereotypical Ten Hag outer loves Sancho, hates Garnacho, etc., that means I am unfairly putting a group of people into a box that isn't true. But some people seem to have lost that last night. But my point is, as a Ten Hag outer, surely you would rather we didn't win the FA Cup if you're so determined to get him out of the club. Or is that unfair as well? Because there are a minority of Ten Hag outers who are clearly focused on being right, and I told you so. You know it, I know it. There are people out there that seem to be getting more enjoyment from the justification of being right than they are about anything else. But so I understand it. I pretty much think I could walk up and go, there's the FA Cup, we can scrub the name out and put Man City on it and give it to them, and Ten Hag gets the sack, and they go, let's do it. But I find that incredible. These FA Cups, we've not won 100 FA Cups. They don't come around every year. I think we did very well to win that FA Cup, and we deserved it, and I wouldn't be giving it back to anybody, because actually that FA Cup final is one of the most enjoyable trophies we've won in the last 10 years. I would say that final is the most enjoyable trophy we've had since Sir Alex, bar the Europa League, which I loved. I loved that Europa League with Mourinho against Ajax. I absolutely loved that night. But It's a derby final, like Savage says. It's against Manchester City, the dominant force of English football for the last 8 years. It's Pep Guardiola. It's a brilliant Man City side, and we thoroughly deserve to beat them. It wasn't a smash and grab. We tactically did a very good job on them. We played very, very well, and we won a major trophy against Man City, a trophy they wanted to win. Am I giving that back? Never. But I'm Ten Hag in, so I wouldn't anyway. But I don't understand the argument of we'd be better off not winning the FA Cup because Ten Hag would have got sacked. So we'd be better off wiping from our history a memorable FA Cup final win against a very good Man City side just to get rid of a manager that might end up turning it around this season again. Incredible to me. But that's the sort of stuff you've got out there. There are people out there that genuinely are throwing that out there, and people are going, it's a good debate. So I thought, well, I'll throw it in here. But I don't understand that logic. You know, I'd rather we didn't win the FA Cup because Ten Hag would be gone and then we'd be spending the money on a new manager. So these things don't come around very often as well. We're not a good enough team that we can go, well, we'd win it with the next manager. We might not win the FA Cup for another 10 years. So yeah, I don't agree with that. I really don't agree with it. Interestingly though, and look, respect, 32% of this audience tonight would give that FA Cup and say we'd be better off not winning it. 68% of you are with me saying absolutely ridiculous, but 32% of you, so getting on for 40%, would happily give that FA Cup up to get Ten Hag out. Hey, that's fine. It's all about opinion. And that just shows you how important it is for some people to get Ten Hag out of this football club. They would give up a memorable FA Cup against our biggest rival, Manchester City. Not our biggest rival, but you know what I mean. Aldin says, to be honest, once we have the entire squad for at least 15 games, we can let people speak after that. He had never had his entire squad. The audacity to say the FA Cup wasn't required after 6 to 7 years of not winning anything. It's a disgrace. My blood is boiling, says Akil. Eric Ten Hag made mistakes against Liverpool, but he lost against the third best team in the Premier League. Why are fans overacting like we lost to Everton, says SK. If Eric Ten Hag fails with this new structure, it's on him, says Sean. 100%. I'm with you on that. And I hate to bring it back up, but even if Palmer and all these Madrid players can take a leave of absence, why couldn't Shaw this summer? Still pissed, says Caleb. Palmer who? Cole Palmer's not had a leave of absence, has he? He's been playing for Chelsea ever since the start. Constantine says, the fact that he flaunts his FA Cup trophy for me showcases arrogance when he hasn't figured it out yet in the Premier League. And I'm Ten Hag in, but if he goes, get Emery, says Gaz. And Sheriff says, hi Mark, on Rashford, if the club managed to bring him back to good form, do you think they will move him on or keep him? What would you do? I'm curious. I think on Marcus Rashford, the plan is to get him back playing well and make him a key part of the team again. I think that is quite clearly the plan. I'd love it to happen. I always look. It's very funny because on YouTube, I think a lot of you think I like Rashford, and I think on X, a lot of people think I don't like Rashford. I said at the end of last season I thought he'd have a big year this year. Obviously not had a great start, but he hasn't had a shot on goal. A lot of people see that as a negative, and it is. But on the other hand, he hasn't missed a shot yet. You know, maybe in his first 4 shots he scores. So look, I think the club are banking on the switch coming on, and I think we all have to bank on that. I don't think they're looking to sell him. I think they want to get the best out of Marcus Rashford. My biggest concern about Marcus Rashford is what it's going to do to Garnacho, because Ahmad's the best player on the right, and it's the perfect time to say it. I nearly said maybe it's a future topic. We've got time. I'm worried about Garnacho. I'm just going to say it. I'm worried about Garnacho, and I will tell you why. He's operating on reduced game time at the moment. Liverpool was his first start, and he was subbed off in that game, and obviously the crowd weren't very happy about it. For some reason, and I don't know why, I feel that last season Garnacho was one of our best players, and not just because of the worldie against Everton. I think he was one of our best players last year. In a bad season, he was one of our best players. He was one of the most consistent players we had in a team that, you know, really was a shambles. I think even in the Community Shield when he came on against Man City, he looked like one of our best players. And I was like, Garnacho is arguably one of the players to be building this season around. He's not a kid anymore. I know he's 19, but he's done that. The last 18 months have been Garnacho off the bench, starting games. At the end of last season, if you said to me, what's Garnacho? I would say he should have the number 7 shirt, and he is a starter for Manchester United. And in the first 3 games, it's still very early, and it could change after the international break. But in the first 3 games, I've got this impression that Garnacho has gone back to being the kid who, comes off the bench again. And I think that completely and utterly ignores what he did last season. He established himself as a first-team player last season. And I worry as to where he's going to play on the regular, because Ahmad, for me, is the best right winger. So Ahmad has to start against Garnacho on the right. And if Rashford's going to start on the left, even when he's playing badly, then where does Garnacho fit in? Because it's a step backwards that isn't justified, in my opinion. He should be starting games for Manchester United. So I think that's one to watch, because it does concern me a little bit. I'm not bothered if Ten Hag wants to keep picking Rashford. I didn't think it would cost us the game against Liverpool. I said that before the game, and it didn't. I said I would have dropped Rashford and played Garnacho and Ahmad, but I thought people were going over the top pre-game, because you don't know what the result is pre-game. And my biggest concern was the midfield. And I said, look, I would have dropped Rashford, but I don't think that's why we'll lose the game. It will be the midfield. And lo and behold, it was. So I don't mind if Ten Hag wants to keep picking Rashford. If he gets it wrong, he'll get the sack, like any manager will. But I do worry about Garnacho. I don't understand why he's not starting games. And also, I think he's much better on the left. I just saw a weird article about Casemiro being loaned to Galatasaray, says Charlotte. It won't happen. Won't happen. I got told yesterday about Eriksen that all that rumour about Eriksen going was bullshit. We can't let him go. We need the numbers. We haven't got the numbers in midfield now. You can't loan Casemiro or Eriksen out when you haven't brought Amrabat in. So we can't let Casemiro go. We haven't got the numbers to do it. What happens then? So Casemiro gets loaned out, Ugarte gets injured, and we haven't got a holding midfielder. So no, Casemiro may end up being the most expensive backup number 6 in Premier League history. I think he'll play for the first team, to be honest. But no, we can't be letting Casemiro go. That would be incredibly silly, in my opinion. Voting yes is a disgrace, says Big Man. First time I've seen Sancho in a while. Hope he shines, says Jay. Hi, Mark. Great show as always. Are you worried about the 7 games in 22 days, considering missing players? Shaw, Mount, Yoro, also Ugarte to be great, in my opinion, says Scott Page. What about Alphonso Davies to United, says Scooby? Well, he's going to Real Madrid. Unless we do another Yoro, he will go to Real Madrid. Do you think we'll see Højlund and Xerxes in a 4-2-4, says Timon? No. Would you have took Victor Osimhen on loan, Mark, says David? We wouldn't be able to afford that, David, but I would take him, yeah. I think we'll get in the top 5 and we'll finish better, says Vishal. Look, you know what? In relation to the injuries, I know for a fact that Rasmus is very, very close to being back and was always pushing to be back for the Southampton game. Obviously, we know how Ten Hag works, so he probably will be on the bench against Southampton. I don't think he'd throw him in from the start, but I think Rasmus will be back on the bench for that game. There is talk that Luke Shaw is meant to be back for Southampton as well. And people say, well, they won't start. But if they're training this week, they've got a whole week of training. So they may well both be involved in that game. Mount's not going to be back. Obviously, Malacia is not going to be back. And who else? Yoro won't be back. But I think Rasmus and Luke Shaw should be back pretty quickly. But we have got a lot of games. I talk about Southampton away, Crystal Palace away, Spurs at home and Villa away. But in between that, you've got Barnsley and 2 Europa League games as well, haven't you? So we've got 7 games coming up. Oh, look, bring it on. I think we need this little bit of a break, but bring it on. Out of topic, have you found a venue for the Christmas event? Please let us know ASAP. Some of us need to apply for a visa. No, I haven't, Sheriff. I do want to do a Christmas show, but we can't find a venue big enough at the moment. So I know we have got something coming up at the end of the month in Birmingham, but that's more for the podcast. But you're more than welcome to come. You're more than welcome to come. What's this Casemiro to Galatasaray thing then? Some people are talking about it, but it's not. There's just it can't happen. It literally can't happen. We would be so short in the midfield. It won't happen. Let me have a quick look. Yeah, I can't see anything about it. And, you know, honestly, it wouldn't make any sense anyway to do that, really. I was massively depressed after Sunday, says Andre Gomez, but now that I've calmed a bit, I realise we still have hope. Rasmus is such an important player for us, and I believe he will return to football. I think Rasmus is a massive player for us. I mean, obviously, everyone knows I'm a big fan of his, but I think Rasmus is a massive player for us because one of the encouraging things about United this season is that whatever you think about the system, we have involved the forwards a lot more. If you think about Mount and Bruno, when they were playing as the false nines, they were getting chances. Bruno had 2 against Fulham. Mount had 1. Against Brighton, we had a lot of chances again. And then against Liverpool, Xerxes had 2 chances. So the one problem that Rasmus had last year was not finishing. It was supply. And if we can get that supply... I mean, look, I'm not going to skirt this issue. I've always said, if Marcus Rashford puts a good cross in the box and someone scores from it, we should shout it from the rooftops. Unfortunately, Xerxes didn't score them, and Rashford therefore didn't get the praise. But ultimately, the game was lost at that point as well. But if the service is there, Rasmus will score. If the structure above is really about change and long-term vision, they will make Garnacho a starter and double down on the youth, says Edward V. Going back, Ollie did say a trophy can disguise the real problem. Do you think if he had the backing Ten Hag has, United would be in a better position, says Mike. Are we actually going to... Mike, what is this Ole Gunnar Solskjaer revisionism? Fucking hell, mate. He didn't even pretend he had tactics. I mean, Ollie... At least Ten Hag is trying to play something expansive. I mean, we literally conceded the first goal from a misplaced pass, and we had 3 defenders, including the guy who misplaced the pass. Our fullbacks were bombing forward. Our midfielders were bombing forward. You might not like it, and you might... We're going to talk about it in a minute, because Roy Keane and Gary Neville had a right argument about it. But we are trying to play expansive football under Ten Hag, although it's not working. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer literally parked the bus and survived on smoke fumes and vibes. It was crap to watch. We did... Look, I looked at it today. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer actually has the best, if not one of the best, Premier League winning records for a new manager. Because I was looking at it because Arne Slot's won his first 3 Premier League games in charge. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has the record for winning the most games consecutively as a Premier League manager. But the football was crap. It was basic. And when it got figured out, he couldn't do anything. So, and to say if Solskjaer had had the backing that Ten Hag had is incredible. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer spent £80 million on Harry Maguire. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer spent £50 million on Wan-Bissaka. He spent £75 million on Jadon Sancho. Solskjaer did get backed. So I don't know what you're talking about. It's this. There is still a cult in this United fan base that I'll give them credit. I'll give them credit. Just because you're a cult doesn't mean that, you know, you should be disrespected. But even when we were winning under Erik Ten Hag, there was still a cult of Ole. And obviously now we're not, they're going to come back. But I love Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He's a legend of this football club. And he walked out a legend of this football club quite rightly, even though he wasn't a very good manager. But God, I would not take him back as him or Southgate would be a good poll. I don't rate Solskjaer as a coach. And funnily enough, nobody else does as well, because it was a long time since he left Manchester United. And I did say he will never get a job back in the Premier League. And look at what's happened. He never will. What I don't get is the manager coming out and saying Ugarte needs months to settle. Constantine, I do get that. It's irritating, but I know why Ten Hag's saying it. He's trying to take pressure off the player that... I mean, look at it like this, Constantine. Ugarte absolutely has to succeed. Has there been a signing since Paul Pogba or maybe Jadon Sancho or Cristiano Ronaldo's return that absolutely has to hit the ground running and work? Now, with Paul Pogba, £80 million, Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the best players in the world, Jadon Sancho, £75 million, you can sort of understand it. Ugarte didn't have the best season for PSG last year and isn't coming in as prime Rodri, and yet we all know, for different reasons, it's not because he's the world's best holding midfielder. It's because we're desperate for a holding midfielder. He has to come in and succeed. For numerous reasons, there is a huge amount of pressure on that signing. One of those reasons being we've lost 2 of our first 3 games and he wasn't here at the start. We need to hit the ground running. Hit the ground running. Yes, we need to hit the ground running against Southampton. We don't need to hit the hound running. So there's a huge amount of pressure on him. So I do understand, Constantine, why Erik ten Hag is saying he will need time to adjust, because what he's doing is he's irritating the shit out of us saying that, because we're panicking, going, wah, wah, wah. But what he's doing is he's trying to alleviate the pressure on a player. It won't work, but he's trying to just say it will take Ugarte time to settle in, because he knows the pressure that Ugarte is on straight away. I mean, look, what did Souness say about De Ligt being slow and, lightweight? What did they say about Martinez being small? Like, they're going to go in on Ugarte very, very quickly, aren't they? What I don't get is the manager. I've done that from Constantine. If the structures are okay, we've done that one. I've done that one as well. I want to talk about this Keane versus Neville debate, because I thought it was actually quite good for once. But just on Dan Ashworth, something else he said. Obviously, we're talking about his comments this morning, but this is what he had to say about Bruno Fernandes. Securing Bruno Fernandes on a new long-term contract was crucial to the transfer strategy of the summer. Securing the best talent in the team on a long-term deal is brilliant. His output is brilliant. He had an unbelievable season last season, and his influence as captain is immeasurable. Big words from the director of football on Bruno Fernandes. And it was interesting the way he basically said that amongst all our transfer activity, it was crucial to the transfer strategy of the summer that Bruno Fernandes stayed. His output obviously is very important because he never gets injured. And I've said it before, his influence in the dressing room is massive, and you see it when he's not playing. I wouldn't agree that he had an unbelievable season last season. I mean, I remember doing a video saying Bruno's a problem. I don't shirk what I've said. I am a massive fan of Bruno Fernandes, and as I say, you can be more critical of those players that you actually care about when they're not performing because you feel betrayed. And I felt at times last season Bruno was very, very below par for a very long period of time. And I remember doing the video and saying, would Man United be better off without Bruno Fernandes? When you look at these magnetic number 10s like Odegaard, who get the ball, keep the ball and pass the ball, whereas Bruno was giving the ball away a lot, trying Hollywood passes a lot. It was very irrational. It was, we were losing a lot of possession. But it's interesting that Dan Ashworth would say that about Bruno, because ultimately I think Bruno at his best is pivotal to this Manchester United project and is a very important player. And his output, even when he's playing badly, can still be very, very, very good for Manchester United. So I certainly don't think it was the right time for Bruno to be leaving Man United in the summer. I don't think we have enough leaders in that team as it is. But what I do want to see from Bruno is retention. I'd love to see his retention rate increase in relation to, Man United keeping possession. I think it's one of our biggest problems at the moment is just keeping hold of the ball. And we saw it against Liverpool, didn't we? I mean, it's interesting. Against Brighton, we highlighted how many times we were offside. And when you're offside, it's like being tackled because the opposition get the ball. And when you shoot from outside the box and it goes over the bar, the opposition get the ball. And when you have a corner and it's a crap corner, you lose possession. But if you look at the game against Liverpool, if your number 6 doesn't look after the ball, you lose possession and you're in trouble. And I think that's Man United's biggest problem at the moment is retention of the ball. And that can be retention in when you've got it, looking after it and playing the right pass, but it can also be staying onside. It can also be not taking stupid shots. It can also be being better at set pieces. So there's a huge amount of importance that needs to be placed on retention. And I think Bruno does need to be a little bit more Odegaard with the ball, in the sense that we need to look after the ball a little bit better. But yeah, very glowing from Dan Ashworth. Constantine, we've spoken about that. Thank you very much. Overreaction as usual, says John. I don't know what we're overreacting to. Bruno, actually do mark. You said McTominay was a B-Tech. He didn't do anything, but it's the same with Bruno. Sidant, are you literally comparing Bruno Fernandes to Scott McTominay? That to me is absolutely incredible. And too many unforced errors, says Chris B. And FA Cup has delayed our progress. Another year without a real trophy. Hi Mark, Eric Ten Hag leads us to top 6 by December. My only problem is lack of depth, says Foe. And Bruno plays way too high up the pitch. I'd like to see him play as an 8 alongside Mainu and Agate, says GDTP. Well, this was interesting. I don't normally shout out anything in the mainstream, but every now and again you do get a moment of clarity and a moment of, I would say, good analysis. And Roy Keane and Gary Neville were speaking after the Liverpool game. And basically Roy Keane was saying it's shocking how the goals were conceded effectively, because when you look at certainly the first goal, we play a relatively decent bit of passing. It goes to Casemiro. He tries a ridiculous pass that isn't on. Liverpool win the ball, and instantly, just by winning the ball, are 5 against 3. And Roy Keane's saying that's incredible how many people have gone ahead of the ball in that situation. The ball is in the middle of Man United's half. Casemiro has that ball, and his fullbacks, Dalot and Mazraoui, have gone. They've literally gone into the opposition's half. And you can trust that number 6, but if he loses that ball like he did, it's a 5v3. 5 white shirts of Liverpool against 3 Man United. And they were queuing up on the back post because of that. Mazraoui was gone. Dalot was gone. And Roy Keane was saying, this is incredible. It's incredible that we're playing like that against anybody, especially Liverpool, that one bad pass from you and they've got a 5v3. It's going to lead to those sort of goals. But Gary Neville was saying, well, no, when I used to play, you would bomb on. And Roy Keane was saying, not to that extent. You wouldn't be bombing on 20 yards in front of me when I've got the ball and you don't know what I'm going to do with it. So it was interesting because it's a very clear tactical play that we want to overload. And I remember this. I've said this before. I remember this in the very first game against Wolves at the start of last season, and I noticed it against Liverpool as well. It happens a lot where the centre-back splits, and it often is Casemiro, has the ball, drops in between the two centre-backs, and then there's nobody anywhere near him. Whether it's the 2 midfielders or the full-backs, they've all gone like a front, what would be 7, wouldn't it? Would that be right? Yeah. It's weird. And I don't even know what we're trying to achieve because there's only a long ball on in that situation. So I don't understand what that's all about. But it definitely is a tactical play to do that. What I find funny, though, if we're talking tactics, is that imagine Casemiro doesn't give that ball away. And United do progress up the pitch, and Mazraoui and Dalot is up there. How many times does it ever work? How many times do Man United actually utilise those overloads? How many times do we get that ball forward to a Mazraoui or a Dalot or a Shaw or a Wan-Bissaka and overload the opposition? How many times do you see Man United overloading the opposition? It doesn't work anyway. And how many times do you see United get the ball to Garnacho or Ahmad or Rashford and they end up in a situation where it's 3v1? So I sort of side with Roy Keane on this. It is an expansive tactic, but when does it ever play out? I actually think that what Roy Keane is saying, and I agree with it, is that we just need to have a little bit more structure in how we build the play up and a little bit more security so that not every pass we're looking to play for that number 6 is a Hollywood pass or a long ball. Because even if Casemiro hits a 40-yard ball to Mazraoui, it's in the air, Andy Robertson runs forwards and heads it, it's still going to end up being a 5v3. It seems a little bit gung-ho, and it's fine if that gung-ho approach leads to 15 good shots a game and you're going to concede 15 yourself and it could end up 4-3 or 4-all. But it ends up 3-0. At no point did we ever really utilise that. So it is a weird one. It's a weird one how you can end up in a situation where one misplaced pass leaves you 5 against 3 at Old Trafford. But it's not the first time. We saw it a lot last season as well. Have you ever hit a hound running, says Hughes Lad? No. And I know we lost, but De Ligt was all over Jota, says that guy, Beto. Mate, you know what? I can't remember. Oh, I can remember. It was that journalist in the Manchester Evening News. He gave De Ligt a low score and then sort of said we shouldn't have dropped Maguire. And I thought, you know what? Here we go. It's the old agenda again, isn't it? Because there is absolutely no way. I heard a lot of people saying that Rashford should have been dropped for Ahmad. But I didn't read one person say that dropping Maguire for De Ligt was a bad idea. At all. And I think that it really does highlight the fact that there will be this assault on De Ligt from certain media outlets and journalists because they won't be happy that Harry Maguire's not playing. It'll be very similar to what happened with De Gea with Henderson. It will happen. But, I mean, I think he wrote on his player ratings, Maguire came on, he gave him quite a high score and said United didn't concede a goal when Harry Maguire came on. I think Harry Maguire came on in the 70th minute and we were 3-0 down. Like, I don't think, unless I'm missing something mad here, I don't think Harry Maguire needs to come back into the team for De Ligt because we lost 3-0 to Liverpool. I actually think De Ligt played quite well. What I will say is, and Will said this on our podcast, and I said it after the Brighton game, I don't understand why Ten Hag didn't start De Ligt against Brighton. Because if you were going to play him against Liverpool, why are you starting De Ligt his very first game for United against Liverpool? If you know you want to play De Ligt against Liverpool, he should have started him against Brighton. But he got locked into this whole, Maguire played well against Fulham, so I've got to pick him against Fulham. Oh, he played badly against Brighton, now I can pick De Ligt. It's almost a little bit weak leadership from the manager there, because throwing De Ligt in for his first game against Liverpool, I felt was, throwing a player into the lion's den. I thought he did really well. I thought he made some really good tackles. I thought De Ligt played well. He's not at fault for any of the goals. There was some brilliant interceptions, but obviously he got overrun because United's midfield was so shit. But I actually thought De Ligt played well. But it was just overall a bad performance from the team. But I do think it was a bit weird why Ten Hag was giving De Ligt his first start against Liverpool at Old Trafford when he could have started him against Brighton and allowed that relationship to work a little bit well. But I thought he played well. And I really liked De Ligt. And I think he's going to become a fan favourite very quickly. And if he becomes a fan favourite and Martinez is a fan favourite, then really at centre-back we should get better. The worrying thing is the goals that we're conceding are from the midfield. And trust me, it doesn't matter how good your centre-backs are, you can't pick up the runners if your midfielders aren't picking up the runners. As a static centre-back, you can't do it. De Ligt or De Ligt, either way, he was meant, so was Mazraoui. I have hope for both, enough favouritism and we know who, says Coley. Did you see the analysis video of the Anthony Taylor that Phil Brown posted on Twitter? Not making excuses, but they have a point. I haven't seen it, Joe. And I don't want to see it because Anthony Taylor's the referee. I don't know what the context is, Joe. But if we're trying to figure out some sort of conspiracy around Anthony Taylor, then I can't think for the life of me what it is. Does anyone want to just give me a short summary in the chat? I mean, we're surely not saying there's some refereeing issue in that game. I'm not Anthony Taylor's biggest fan. Far from it. But we got beat by Liverpool because we were shit and they were a lot better than us. And also, Liverpool never got out of third gear. And what I mean by that is I've seen a lot of teams over the years beat United and not get out of third gear. And what that means is Liverpool would have had to get out of third gear if we'd have got back to 2-2 and they'd have to go again. And they probably could have gone again at a higher level, but they never had to. So I don't need Anthony Taylor or refereeing excuses. That to me is weak. That is weak as piss. I don't know what it is. And unless, I doubt it, I doubt there's anything there that's really bad. But we can't be looking at officiating for the weekend. I mean, that would be the last excuse I would want to use because They were just way better than us. Way better than us. McTominay isn't in the midfield anymore, Mark, and you have your favourites. Casemiro, Mainu and Bruno in the midfield. Kind of sad that everyone's favourite midfield isn't good enough. Oh, John, you know what? I've had a great day, John, but I've also seen. I can't control idiots. Each to their own. Since when has Casemiro been one of my favourites this season? Absolutely not. I've been at him for about 6 months. He's been terrible for 6 months. Somebody wrote today that I don't like Ahmad, which I found incredible. But I think what they were trying to do is try and make out I'm racist. They were trying to list as many players to fit their ridiculous accusation. Yeah, Ahmad is certainly not a player I dislike. And also, you're going to struggle to call me a racist because you're not going to... Where does Scott McTominay and Maguire fit on that list then? But yeah, some people have a weird idea. I don't actually exist in a world of hate. I don't agree with hate at all. I agree with disagreement, and I agree with saying somebody's not good enough. But ultimately, we can't sell anybody now, and we can't buy anybody now. So if the Lit gets injured, then Maguire has to come in, and hopefully he plays well. And if Ten Hag continues to pick Rashford over Garnacho and Rashford scores goals, then we will win games. Ten Hag will stay in his job, and United will be doing well. It's a bit like the FA Cup thing, isn't it? You know, I think that there are people out there, quite clearly, 32% of you would give up that FA Cup to get what you want, which is Ten Hag out. I find that odd, but a harsher person than me would say they're not United fans then, are they? They will give up a Man United trophy to get a manager out. That's very self-serving. You're giving up trophies for the club you support to be proven right. I think you could say that, but I think you could also look at it in a different way where they might be saying it's short-term pain for a longer-term gain. We'll get closer to the Premier League the sooner Ten Hag gets sacked. So you could look at it like that. But I don't work like that. I mean, somebody might say, you know, if somebody said to me, Garnacho never plays for United again, Rashford does well, and United do well, I'll take it because I want United to do well. I want Garnacho to play ahead of Rashford. I'm not going to lie about that. But I don't want to do it because Rashford's got to get out of the team and get out of Man United. If he starts playing well and scoring goals, ultimately I want Man United to do well. The reason I want Garnacho to play over Rashford is because I think Man United will do better with Garnacho in the team. That's the reason I want Ugarte to play ahead of Casemiro is because I think we'll do better as a team. If Casemiro suddenly comes back after the international break as Real Madrid Casemiro, then Ugarte can sit on the bench till Christmas because we'll be better. If we had prime Casemiro, we'll be better. And if we get prime Rashford, we'll be better. I just want the best team on the pitch. And at the moment, I don't think he's doing that enough. But if those players that he sticks with start playing well and we start winning games, then surely that's what everybody wants. Ashish says, Eric Ten Hag says it will take months for Ugarte to bed into the team. Other managers show confidence in players by throwing them into the mix immediately. Ashish, I think he will throw Ugarte straight into the mix. I think, as I said a few minutes ago, I think he's trying to protect Ugarte. I genuinely don't think we won't see Ugarte play for months. I think he's just trying to say that it might take him time to adjust, to try and lower the expectation that we all know this signing has to work. Andrew says, where's this Tuchel story coming from? Just got in. It's been in the press today, mate. I mean, I think I saw it in the Mirror. Anyway, we're having some cracking shows, and they are going to continue over this international break. So I just want to say, for the second night running, and this morning as well, we're overrunning. And I don't know why it's happening, other than the fact I think we're having some really good shows. So absolute legends again tonight. Thoroughly enjoyed that. And we have overrun, which is fine. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. We'll be back in the morning at 10 o'clock with the 10 o'clock show as per usual. Do not forget, we've got an £800 voucher exclusive for one of you. All you've got to do is scan the QR code or go through the link in the description to win an £800 voucher exclusively for United Stand viewers with boohooman.com. Absolutely fantastic. And Wolf says he hates the international break. Fundamentally, I do hate the international break, but what I like about it and year after year this happens, is that we end up having really good, deeper conversations about things within the team and around the team that we won't get to have in a summer transfer window because it's hectic, or when the games come back because it's literally 2 games a week. So you've got reaction, preview. So I like it because we get to have more of a deeper chat. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. I'll speak to you all in a bit. Stay safe, and I'll speak to you later.